Corla, thank you very much. This motion of confidence was triggered by a motion of no confidence from People Before Profit. People Before Profit knows that their motion had no chance of passing and wouldn't build a single house or house a single other family. Its purpose was to embarrass and to personalise what is a deeply important political and societal issue. The time could have been used to put forward legislation on housing that might have become law, but it was not. This vote will only serve to demonstrate that the government has a clear working majority. We'll move on in the next hour or so and get back to the important work of government: taming inflation, helping families with the cost of living, building homes, creating jobs and investment, taking climate action and providing equal opportunities for all our nation's children. Count Corla, I do think for a moment we should reflect on what life would be like if People Before Profit solidarity took the reins of government. For one thing, we would still be under lockdown, pursuing a zero COVID policy, as the Taoiseach pointed out. To quote People Before Profit's own policy, and I quote, it is critical that we break immediately from the failed living with COVID strategy and implement a strategy based on elimination, the Chinese approach. This would have our economy in shutdown for a third Christmas. Construction sites would be abandoned, and we would deprive people of their basic liberties for far too long. Fewer houses would have been built in the past year under People Before Profit, if any would have been built at all. Yes, a left-wing government would mean radical change for the worse for the vast majority of people. It would involve a self-defeating retreat from Europe and the world in pursuit of an ideological experiment that has brought misery and oppression to every country that has tried it. I acknowledge that we have much more work to do, especially on housing, but this government has helped our economy and society emerge strong from Brexit, from COVID and the war in Ukraine. There are record numbers of people at work in Ireland at the moment. Trade and investment is at record levels. Notwithstanding inflation, incomes are rising. We're generating budget surpluses due to prudent management of the public finances, and we're using that money to help families and businesses with rising energy costs. I know the government needs to do much more on housing in the next 2 years, and it needs to be a whole-of-government approach, and it will be. It's a crisis that cuts across all age groups and one that demands results as well as actions. Today's motion is heavy on analysis, or rather the motion of confidence, no confidence, was heavy on analysis, but light on solutions. Not even one proposal as to how we could build houses more quickly. It's easy to invent slogans and raise targets, much harder to design and execute solutions. In Housing for All, we have a plan that is thought through, with a series of actions that complement one another. We're providing grants to help people renovate old buildings and breathe new life into them, thus creating new homes in towns and villages and rural areas all over the country. Well over 35,000 first-time buyers, singles and couples, have benefited from the Help to Buy scheme, and we've extended Help to Buy for another 2 years. We're helping thousands of first-time buyers to bridge the gap between their deposit and the mortgage that they can get and the price of a new home through the First Home scheme. And Count Corla, 16,000 individuals, couples, families have bought their first home in the past year. That's the highest in 15 years, and we want it to be higher still. These people would not have been Help to Buy if People Before Profit had their way. They want to take away the Help to Buy scheme. They don't believe in the First Home scheme. They want a state-sponsored rent-for-life model of housing, not one based on home ownership. Count Corla, our mission for the remainder of this government is to turn the corner on housing for everyone. Whether you're a renter, a first-time buyer, somebody experiencing homelessness, or somebody in need of more suitable accommodation. Our mission is to restore the social contract and to make home ownership affordable for the many again. So we'll build more houses and apartments and get more people living in suitable, affordable accommodation. We'll build even more social housing because this benefits everyone. It takes people off the housing list and frees up private rental properties for others and puts downward pressure on rents and house prices. And we shouldn't forget, Count Corla, that somewhere around 8,000 or 9,000 new social homes will be provided this year. And that could be the highest on year in the history of our state. People hark back to the 70s, the 80s, the 20s, the 40s, the 60s, periods when they believed the state was building more social housing. That's not the case. Through councils, through approved housing bodies and through other mechanisms, we're providing more social housing than has been the case for a very long time. And we'll also scale up our cost rental programme, which Minister Ryan mentioned. I want to finish by paying tribute to Minister O'Brien. I know him since our days on Fingal County Council in the early 2000s. We both got elected to this House on the same day in 2007, but I've only really had the chance to work with him since 2020 when this government was formed. I know him to be a tireless worker, pleasant and approachable, always available to take a phone call. He's a good man, a man who cares, and a man who's doing everything that he can to turn this situation around. He played an instrumental role in the programme for government negotiations after the general election, helping to form this historic three-party coalition, while others in opposition barely even tried to put together an alternative and organised a range of public meetings instead. Tough as it is, Darius didn't hesitate in taking on the role of Minister for Housing, and he, like all of us, has more to do. I know he will not be undeterred by tonight's motion and will be back at his desk this evening, working on how we can shift the momentum on housing and help people through this difficult winter. I commend the motion to the House. Gurmíl Magat.